Despite the United States being independent for only 246 years, American history is so substantial that events and people seem to have fallen through the cracks. What I'm going to be telling you today isn't something you'd learn in your history books, but is history nonetheless. A lot of people make up the government even in the early days of America. Being a democracy or constitutional republic to be more specific means that many people have to collaborate and work together to get things done collectively. So it makes sense that someone like Richard Mentor Johnson, who wasn't much of a leader, trailblazer, or orator, isn't a household name despite being a former vice president. Johnson is known for four things primarily. 1. He is probably the man that killed Tecumseh. 2. He had a common law marriage with his wife Julia Chin, who was an eighth black. 3. He became vice president due to the 12th Amendment. 4. He wanted the US to drill to the center of the earth. Let's do a deeper dive into Johnson's life centering around these four things, starting with the death of Tecumseh. The death of Tecumseh. If you didn't already know, Tecumseh was a Shawnee chief and warrior looking to form a broader Native American confederation against the expanding colonists. Pretty much all of Tecumseh's family died to American colonists. His father, Pukinswa, died at the hand of Virginian colonists in 1774 at the Battle of Point Pleasant, part of Dunmore's War. His older brother and mentor, Cheesecaw, died of a mortar wound after attacking Bledsoe's station in Gallatin, Tennessee. His younger brother, Tenskwatawa, a prophet, was killed by the ninth and most short-lived president, William Henry Harrison, during the Battle of Tippecanoe. In a similar vein, Tecumseh, another man of legend, fell due to a suicide charge by Johnson's small squad of 20 men. His death occurred at the Battle of the Thames, a monumental win for the Americans in the War of 1812. This death resulted in the destruction of Tecumseh's Confederacy. Johnson didn't immediately claim that he killed Tecumseh, but a few years later, one of the surviving four men stated he did. Johnson ran with the claim and, like other aspects of his life, was met with scrutiny both at the time and historically. His love life. Ready to throw more fire into the flame? Let's talk about his wife and slave Julia Chin. The relationship is a bit tricky to summarize for a video about drilling to the center of the earth, but it seems based on my research that Johnson considered her to be property. This is despite him considering Chin to be his wife publicly and treating her accordingly as one would a wife, not a slave, which is extremely uncommon for the time. Slave owners that had more serious relationships with their slaves never displayed themselves together in public crowds, and certainly not in an affectionate manner. Chin and Johnson had 2 children together that were freed and raised normally, or at least as normal as possible given the circumstances. Chin also managed his estate, including his slaves, when he was away as a congressman from Kentucky and handled money. Chin died of cholera from an epidemic that was spreading through the nation at the time. Johnson soon after replaced his dead wife with another slave who ran away. That slave was later captured and sold at auction. Johnson then had a relationship with the sister of the slave that he sold away. Aside from his 2 daughters, Johnson never emancipated any of his slaves, even at death. All throughout this time, Johnson seemed to have Chin's family constantly around during his time in the military, in the Senate, and in the White House. Section 3. How he became vice president. The year is 1836, and election season is around the corner. Democratic primaries have started. Without a doubt, Martin Van Buren was going to be the Democratic candidate for president. There wasn't a stronger president and VP pair than Jackson and Van Buren, so it just makes sense at the time. He simply is in high demand. Now, who's going to be vice president? Van Buren wanted William Cabell Raveys, and Jackson wanted Johnson. Jackson had more clout than Van Buren, so they went with Johnson. This seems normal enough. Johnson is a war hero known for taking out Tecumseh, and it balances out with Van Buren, who has no military experience. Yet keep in mind that we're talking about the Jeffersonian Democrats here, and is about to get controversial. Maybe it's a bit too late to mention this, but Johnson is a bit of a dumbass. Combine that with the fact that he had a mixed-race wife and openly has a relationship with slaves, then you have some unhappy voters and electorates. By the time the election rolls around, it is obvious that Van Buren is going to win the presidency. Johnson gets 50% of the votes. He's a vote shy from being confirmed vice president. 23 Virginians are faithless electors. Unsurprisingly, the South isn't a fan of the Southerner, so what is there to do except go to the 12th Amendment? For the first and only time, the top 2 vice presidential candidates are chosen by the Senate. Richard Mentor Johnson, a Democrat, and Francis Granger, a Whig. 33 votes for Johnson, 16 for Granger, and 3 abstained. And now the U.S. has their vice president, a man of mystery, Richard Johnson. A man only known to the public for killing Tecumseh, epitomized through his campaign slogan, Rumsey Dumpsey, Colonel Johnson killed Tecumseh. Sci-fi meets reality. Tecumseh's killer thinks the U.S. can drill to the center of the earth. So this has all been going on for a few minutes, or in Johnson's case, tens of years, and I still haven't gotten to the main focus of the video. I guess it's finally time to talk about the bill. At the time of Manifest Destiny, when the US was expanding westward and other countries were colonizing Africa and Australasia, Mentor had a different plan. The vice president said, screw the seas, the shore, the land, and space, let's go underground. Now this isn't Jules Verne fiction, this is real life, or at least to the degree I could substantiate this claim. I first found out about Johnson's trip on Wikipedia, so it's hard to say the degree to which this is true. Now this isn't a Wikipedia condensed video, so I can't fully go off the fact that this is a proposed bill just by reading it on Wikipedia. If you haven't followed what I'm saying through this word salad, there isn't much info on the bill online. Doing a deeper dive into congressional records, online sources, and random news articles hasn't given me much insight because there seems to be minimal traces of this bill left online. There's one video on YouTube that supposedly retells Johnson's speech from the 1839 congressional records, but I can't find it anywhere online. I'll link that video in the description. So let me piece together what I've gathered from multiple sources, regardless of historical accuracy. There's a man named Richard Mentor Johnson. He's a bit of a radical. He somehow becomes vice president. He's rather ineffectual like other vice presidents. He subscribes to the theory of a hollow earth. There's another man named John Cleve Sims Jr. He has a theory called the hollow earth theory. He publishes some papers on it. It is followed by a niche pseudoscientific community like the flat earthers of today. He's encouraged by stories from Native Americans. He dies, leaving his life's work in the hands of fellow lecturer and third and final man, Jeremiah Reynolds. Another theorist of the hollow earth theory. He tries his hardest to secure funding to travel to the Arctic or to find a hole leading to the center of the earth. He believes there may be great conditions there for farming. He propositions John Quincy Adams for funding. Congress is against the idea. Adams reluctantly agrees. Jackson becomes president. Jackson is against the idea. It falls in Congress. Reynolds then goes on an expedition to the Arctic with private funding, leaving from New York City. Reynolds can't break the ice. No traces of a hollow earth. He needs funding for Big Drill. Sometime within the following 10 years, he hears from Native Americans that there is an entrance, maybe through the Rocky Mountains. Somehow gets in contact with the 9th Vice President of the United States, who's a huge fan of his predecessor, Sims. The bill fails to get votes. Oh, what could have been? Let's finally conclude this video. Anyway, 2 years later, Martin Van Buren dumps Johnson from his ticket and runs without a vice president. Johnson got some votes for vice president through the Electoral College, but didn't really care. During the first year of his vice presidency, he took 9 months off to build a spa and tavern and manage his farm. So at least he now has something to do. He ran unsuccessfully for various positions in Kentucky. Finally, in 1850, he became a member of the Kentucky House of Representatives. According to his fellow representatives, he had severe dementia and was completely incompetent of any work to a much larger degree than in the past. He died after 2 weeks of serving his new position. Video end.